Roberto Clemente, the Caribbean Major League Baseball player, was famously quoted as saying, "Baseball has been very, very good to me." Well, Silver has been very, very good to me, and it was very, very good to Robert. He gave Robert a life's work. He gave Robert a life's interest. He gave Robert a whole host of friends who he would never have made without it. That's the beginning of our story. It's given me also a world of endless fascination in the form of discovery through research. It's filled my life with the goal to solve complex puzzles that require knowledge of economics, as we've heard just now, customs, history, and politics, all inseparable. It brought me a wife who appeared one Saturday morning in Portobello Road to read for the trousseau for her wedding. And it gave me a lifelong friend, a collaborator, who was eager to play Holmes to my Watson, and happily switched roles for my research, challenging me to improve my work at every turn. This was Robert Barker. And there he is. This is growing up in Jamaica. And this was Robert Barker, who are all here ready to celebrate. By the time I met Robert, I'd been investigating the silver smiths of the West Indies alongside my work on Indian makers for several years. Proving that a whole big body of precious Scottish provincial silver was actually of Indian origin didn't make an enormous number of friends within the trade. He was definitely perceived as less desirable. One of the few people who did encourage me was the formidable Mrs. G.E.P. Howe, who, along with her husband's commandant, was one of the titans of 20th century scholarship in our field. Now, Mrs. Howe will be a familiar name to many of you in this room, certainly those of slightly older vintage. But for those who aren't, and maybe to remind some of you who are, indulge me a moment while I describe this most singular of personalities. Mrs. George Evelyn Paget Howe, née Jane Ennis Benson. That's a good Chinese review, no? There you are. Stood approximately 4 foot 10 inches tall. Whoops, you don't want that yet. She dressed soberly in the finest tweeds and cashmeres and wore beautiful but sensible custom-made shoes. In her widowhood, Mrs. Howe's perpetual entourage, as you can see, was a pack of giant English masters who slobbered everywhere. You went there in your best suit, you came away with slobber dog or whatever your trousers, who say nothing about it. And she took enormous pleasure in these dogs, in fact breeding them to best of breed crust more than once. Indeed, when the Silver Society, and some of you will know this already, requested her photo for the 40th anniversary, she sent in a photograph of her prize bitch with the following. This was Mrs. Howe. Mrs. Howe's preferred mode of transport was one of 2 Bentleys. One for the dogs and one for people. Totally logical. She was opinionated, forthright, to the point. She did not suffer fools gladly. And possessed a lightning quick temper, which I think many of us who knew her might have been on the receiving end of at one point or another. I'm sure Tip was much good than that. But I certainly managed to upset her on odd occasions. But that's good down. You might bend it. Mrs. Howe received visitors in her stately rooms and St. James's, all smoking incessantly. The smoke in a continual circular swirl from mouth to nostrils and back again. Her telephone manner was brusque and businesslike. One simply did not refuse at the summons from her to attend, and in short, she was completely terrified. So that sets the scene. Late in the summer of 1977, I was sitting in Norfolk, going through various Colonial Acts of Assembly, as one does, and I came across the Acts establishing an assay office on Jamaica. In this eureka moment, I realised that the marks describing these acts are the day ones previously ascribed to old Aberdeen. Full of excitement for my discovery, I spontaneously rang the tower and told her I had cracked old Aberdeen, expecting a rather enthusiastic response. But no congratulations, distinctly defeated by her lack of enthusiasm. "You'd better come here," was her flat reply. And she took the phone down. In St James's, a few days later, I could barely contain my excitement as I was shown to the drawing room again. Mrs. Howes would seat opposite me, lit her cigarette, knew what was coming next, and then Harold with her nose the smoke that floated out from her mouth. You could tell this impressed me considerably. "It's Jamaica," I said. Very excited, waiting for her to tell me what a fabulous discovery I'd made. She looked at me across the table, said nothing, her eyes virtually rolling in irritation. "Wynyard, someone much younger, much smarter than you has already done it. You'd better meet him." Several days later, again in Pickering Place, where of course I arrived spot on time, I once again entered Mrs. Howe's rooms, where I was stunned to see a 17-year-old schoolboy in his school blazer seated across the table from Mrs. Howe. He was completely nervous and clearly regarded me as the devil incarnate. This was Robert Barker, just in case you hadn't guessed. Well, there were one or two things that going to happen. Robert and I were arguing as best friends and collaborate, or we were going to work against each other and hiss at each other at every opportunity for however long our silver careers continued. You may have guessed by now also that we collaborated. So began collaboration. It lasted 42 years, until Robert's death in 2019. For all of those 42 years, we need another slide, don't you? Yes, we do. I'm not doing my job. Right. That's the Jamaica mark that I found, Robert found. That's what probably 20. And the next one I'll bring in the right place. So for all those 42 years, barely a day went by, Robert and I did not speak at least once on the telephone. Now, Robert had a wonderful habit of telephoning up at just the wrong moment. Now, this is fine when you're a bachelor. But when you've got a wife, and you've got dinner, and you've got dogs, and you've got this, and you've got that, there, other people are not always quite so tolerant of the phone ringing at just the wrong moment. You had absolute knack for it. It's quite extraordinary. But they were pretty much on the day in those 42 years when we didn't speak one to another. Our first task of collaboration cast us like animals. We were planning our campaign, and we divided up the Caribbean. Robert, of course, got Jamaica, along with Cuba and the Antilles, the French islands, and I got the rest. This way we had no competition, and the deal was that neither of us would publish anything without asking the other. So, having responded to the siren song of the silver, Robert was soon taken under the wing of the eminent scholar dealer Hugh Jessup and his assistant Gail Glenn. I think Gail's here, yeah?
Yes.
Gail here? Yes, they were. I'm joking with you. excitedly recounted tales of numerous afternoon handling sessions at Hugh's Belgravia premises, where Robert's tummy was filled with tea and cake. And his mind was charged with an ever-deepening appreciation, not only of the magnificent objects Hugh offered, but the heraldry and engraving is so often found on these best of pieces. This inspiration was to carry him through for the rest of his life. We all need someone to do that for us in life, if we're going to be lucky. And Robert had get hold of Hugh to start him off, and he was really, really important. And it was part of his personality. Over the decades, Robert threw himself into his research on silver and how it relates to the history of design in general. Of particular interest to it was the transition of style between Britain and the Americas during the 18th century. This is something you've already been introduced to by the last speaker. This theme was not limited to silver, but encompassed the fine arts, as well as other forms of decorative art, as we will hear from Liz Nelson. Several years after Robert and I met, he approached another venerable figure in the silver pantheon, in the form of Arthur Grimwood. With the courage of the innocent, Robert matter-of-factly informed the great man that he, Robert, could make contributions to Grimwood's epic work, which had taken Grimwood 20 years to put together. And so, Robert, Sarah Tanner, researched assiduously the goldsmiths who were not members who were members of the wider library rather than just of the Goldsmiths Company. And so successful were they that Grimwood was required to use the third edition. That was entirely really because of Robert's drive to discover the Goldsmiths and the connections in the wider library rather than just at Goldsmiths Hall. Word began to get out about the quality of Robert's research and his enthusiasm and his desire to help. I was talking earlier, and one or two of the people I talked to today, what did they say? Oh yes, if I was doing this, Robert would ring me up and say, I found this other thing. Or he'd say, I'm going to this library, is there anything I can look at for you? This is the personality of the person we're celebrating. He wanted to help. He wanted to make our work better. It wasn't about Robert, it was about the wider scholarship. So the quality of his work and the critical contributions he began led to me invited to comment on numerous publications before they went to press. One of the things he was most proud of was going to America to deliver a paper on Rococo silver in the transmission of Rococo style in Richmond and Virginia. He was really, really excited about that. And he was particularly chuffed, really chuffed, when he was asked to proofread and critique Patricia Kane's definitive Colonial Massachusetts swordsmith. This is an enormous book, and a great work of art, that Robert was so proud of his contribution to it. When he came to others, particularly young enthusiasts, and he'd be so thrilled that there are so many young people here today, Robert was extravagant with his time and attention, and always willing to help in any way he could. But in addition, he would help his senior colleagues in the trade and the academic world as well. As I said, all he wanted to do was help. A puzzle to solve, a piece of information to find which he could appear with, rather like an Labrador bringing a stick back from the wood and drop it at your feet and say, look, you didn't find that, I found it, isn't it exciting, but it helps what the story you're trying to tell. That was all. He was totally thrilled to do that. And as I say, it was done out of generosity, not out of cleverness, not out of ego. It was done because it helped you, but it was done because he could solve the problem, solve the puzzle, find the piece of the jigsaw. Now, His work enriched the work of numerous leading scholars on both sides of the Atlantic. And luckily, one or two of you are here today, which is great. Now, Robert would have been really quite cross with me if I just talked about Robert and the silver. So, I'm not going to lead out with his other consuming interests. How many people know about his other consuming interests? Hands up. One. Right. Good. This was a territorial army, and formerly Honourable Artillery Company, HAC, to those who want to be smart about it, where he really found his niche and was able to progress rapidly through the ranks. On one occasion, at the height of the Cold War, Robert was summoned to East Germany to accompany a British business delegation. Now, he spent days studying slides of different fields before he left, and I couldn't work out what he was up to. I didn't learn this until a long time after. His role, much like a page out of the current novel, was to commit to memory details of Soviet military equipment, which he could covertly observe, while pretending to be part of the British business delegation. He was completely in his element as he discharged his duty. He loved every second of it. And he roused his tale of espionage on evening of dinner, but only after glancing around the restaurant in a very dramatic fashion to make sure he wasn't overheard. So this is Robert. Robert had a lifelong passion for the topic we're here to discuss today. Sharing his discoveries and ideas from things he discovered at the Goldsmiths Hall here in the library, delving into the archives of Guildhall or the London Metropolitan Library. He loves the silver, and he derived real pleasure from owning, handling, discussing, and researching it. This led to his being awarded an MPhil from the Royal College of Art in 2008, of which also he was very justifiably proud. He was fascinated by the way that his taste. This is Robert researching branding help, we will see later. Robert was fascinated by the ways in which taste and style traveled from one corner of the globe to another, and insatiably intrigued by the motives and personalities of the silversmiths, as well as the mechanics of 18th century trade in Germany. As you heard, he left his unique and unrepeatable collection to the National Museum of Scotland, where it may be viewed today. And I think Georgina Gunnings is here from the NMS. Yes, there you are. Just that everybody knows that you're here. I think it's a great honour that you're here. I'm thrilled that you're here to celebrate the collection that you hold at the NMS. The collection, of course, demonstrates the progress and transmission of styles from the fashionable metropolis to the wealthy planter class in the West Indies, particularly Jamaica for all, but in general. And of course, he would have loved to be here today. Thank you very much.
Wynyard, thank you very, very much. That was a really lovely, very touching tribute. And I'm so pleased you included the territorial army element of his life, which I must confess I completely forgot about. We've got a few moments. Would you be prepared to take any questions? Yes.
That was, as Tim said, absolutely riveting. Your personal knowledge came through so strongly. I only ever knew him in a wheelchair, and I have to say I did not know what took him to the wheelchair. Could you perhaps talk about that? Because he was always so very good about his disability, but was it an accident in the army? Or?
Now, Saturday wasn't anything as exciting as that. Robert's one weakness as a younger person was that he was a little bit of a hypochondriac. So that when he had an ache or pain, one got used to caring about it. I'm sure we all know people like that. In May 1997, and he was working with me, putting together what was going to be the first exhibition of the Post East India Company, Indian Silver, in London. And he complained he got a pain in his back. And I made him go and lie down in the basement, and he didn't get better. So we sent him to Queen Mary's Hospital. And they sent him home with paracetamol. And he got up in the morning, he was making his eggs today, and he found himself in a puddle on the floor. And he got a blood clot which had lodged in his spinal cord. And that's what he came to paralysis. He was fortunate in that he went for Edgar Square and then to Stoke Mandeville. So he was taught to come to terms with his wheelchair in a way that not all people who suffer like that are. And he then, I think very cleverly, we've all seen, he used his talents and his contacts within our world, and he didn't lose contact with the AJC, but that's not very fair. To make himself the spider at the centre of a web, but he couldn't keep going out of the edges of the web, but he could encourage us flies to come nearer to the middle. Does that answer your question?
When was that?
1997.
Thank you.
So he was 38.
He bore it with great forbearance.
I think, without something like that happening to one, it's very difficult to imagine what goes on in the head of the person who is suffering. I think Robert did really well. But the real thing, I think, again, we're celebrating him today, is that it still didn't become about Robert. It was still about the socket, the friends, the knowledge, the enthusiasm, the company. So he didn't ever feel sorry for himself. He just got on with it.
Did you not badge a corporation about making better arrangements for wheelchairs and things like that?
That was one of the, he came to the development, and there's a resident of the city, most of the pavements, if you walk over, which are wheelchair-friendly ramps rather than curb steps, are there because of Robert. He was a great thorn in the side of the city corporation when it came to making things disabled access at night.
I don't think I've ever asked you, Wynyard, before he met Mrs. Howard, what got him into cinema?
Robert was collected coins. He collected coins, particularly Spanish coins, from Jamaica. And he found the asset, he wasn't interested in himself. He found the assets by mistake, looking for legislation to do with coinage, and the countermarking of coinage, and the international use of coinage in the islands. And he realized what import they had. His father had a little collection of English silver. And the father and Robert then came to London, visited Wilkinson town, and they went to New Jersey, where they were very fortunate to meet two people in the form of Hugh and Gail, who saw the enthusiasm of the son and the ability of the father to occasionally buy something. And by total chance, and it was chance, I believe, Gail bearing out, not either on the first or second visit of Robert and his father, Hugh came back to the shop bearing a pair of these candlesticks which had magically turned from Old Aberdeen into Jamaica. This was right at the beginning there, wasn't it? And that was the inspiration. He couldn't believe the serendipity of it, and that caught his imagination, and the incredible kindness of these two. So that's the answer.
I think we're going to have to.
No more questions.
We're going to have to stop there. There will be an opportunity to ask any further questions that you may have that may occur to later at the end of the session, but we need to keep going now. So, William, thank you very much.